The mother-in-law said, "The labor pains have started, and it usually takes about 10 hours. So the baby will be born before noon, right? Don't be so weak, you housemaid. Stop being lazy and prepare the meal." Overwhelmed by the mother-in-law's abusive words and the intense pain of labor, I collapsed to my knees. My name is Emily, and I am 32 years old. My husband John is 34 years old. It was a commonplace office romance. Currently, I am on parental leave and working as a full-time housewife. We were blessed with a baby after a year of marriage. Let's build our own home now that we're having a child. My husband and I agreed. And we built our dream home. In our newly built home, filled with the scent of fresh wood, I was overwhelmed with joy and anticipation, thinking, I've started a family. In this house, I will wait for a new life, a new family. However, I had no idea that this home would become the stage for an unbelievable showdown. On the day we moved into our completed home, my in-laws came to help, or so they said. Indeed, they helped, but as soon as my father-in-law stepped out, my mother-in-law demanded, "Give me a duplicate key to your house." Yeah. Even if she is my mother-in-law, why would I need to give her the keys to her house? When I was about to refuse, my husband said, "That's fine. I'm going out to shop for food, so I'll get a duplicate key made." Yeah. Both parent and child, what an absurdity. Is my sense of values wrong? Confused, I looked at my husband, who said, "A lively house is better, right? I want a home where people gather. You're pregnant, and you'd want support, wouldn't you?" I was dumbfounded and speechless at his words. My bad feeling came true. Every morning at 9 o'clock, my mother-in-law would come to our house, bringing her laundry. "Doing laundry for 2 or 4 people is the same," she would say, handing me the basket full of laundry with a broad smile. And while I was doing laundry, she would nag, "Isn't breakfast ready yet?" Trying to contain my irritation, I asked, "Didn't you eat at home?" To which she replied, "I fed my husband. He has early work in the morning. But I have time, so I decided to have breakfast here, breakfast at my place. Our usual breakfast is just coffee and toast for my early rising husband and melon bread for me. But when my mother-in-law visits, I have to add salad and soup to the menu." She arrogantly named it Special Morning and made it a routine to eat it every weekday morning. She would also have lunch, and for dinner, she would apply the same logic as the laundry, smiling as she packed half of the food I made into containers to take home. One day, after living like this for about 3 months, I've always been the one cooking. "Could you please help with dinner preparation once in a while?" I tried asking. Then she snapped, "You're ordering your husband's mother around. You have no respect for your elders." I was trained the same way by my mother-in-law. I don't need a cheeky daughter-in-law who talks back. Just do what you're supposed to do, quickly. I was so taken aback, I couldn't respond. Come to think of it, my mother-in-law has only ever referred to me as you or this person. While ignoring her scolding, I vaguely thought about this. Hey, about your mother. Frustrated with my mother-in-law's behavior, I tried talking to my husband. But he was of no help, saying, "There's a saying. Old age and treachery will always beat youth and exuberance. Whatever mother says is right, that's common sense in society." And so, I continued living this way until my final month of pregnancy. One day, my labor pains finally started. They began in the middle of the night, and with the pain coming at regular intervals. It was naturally impossible for me to do any housework. Amidst this, my mother-in-law entered our house without ringing the bell, using her duplicate key. She stomped her feet loudly, marching straight into the living room. "What? You haven't prepared the meal yet? You're so slow. Hurry up and do it." As usual, my mother-in-law yelled at me, full of arrogance. Normally, I would at least greet her reluctantly with a hello, but at that moment, the labor pains were so intense that even her yelling seemed distant. My sweat dripped onto the floor. Sorry, I need to go to the hospital. I am having labor pains. My voice was intermittent, matching the waves of pain. Labor pains usually last about 10 hours before the baby is born. It's not time to go to the hospital yet. Don't be such a wimp, housemaid. Isn't breakfast ready yet? I couldn't respond to her angry shouts and writhed in pain. Help, dear. My vision blurred, and my consciousness started to fade. I clung to my husband's knee, who was reading the newspaper nearby. However, my husband closed the newspaper, lightly brushed my hand away, and said, if Mom says it takes time from labor pains to birth, then it must be true. She's given birth to 3 children after all. It's already past 9 o'clock. Isn't breakfast ready yet? At that moment, I couldn't bear it any longer and screamed. My water broke, and I was somehow taken to the hospital in an ambulance and received treatment. It's a healthy baby boy. After giving birth, while I was dazed in the hospital room, a nurse spoke to me kindly. You should have called the hospital when the labor pains were 5 minutes apart. You endured too much. I asked my mother-in-law and my husband to take me to the hospital, but they said it was still too early, as I explained the situation. The nurse sighed and asked worriedly, Hey, can you go back to that mother-in-law's house and raise your child well? True to the nurse's words, even after giving birth, I would still be called you and this person and treated like a housemaid. Holding my newborn, I wondered if I could manage. My anxiety must have shown on my face. The nurse comforted me, saying, You're becoming a mother now. Protecting yourself means protecting your child. Take care of yourself for your child's sake. For my child, I must take care of myself. That's right. I made up my mind. The nurse patted my back with a smile. Without peace of mind for the mother, you can't properly handle breastfeeding, night crying, or even giving affection. For my child, I need to become strong. I have to be strong. While looking at my baby's hand, I clenched my trembling palm. When I returned home from the maternity hospital with my baby, there was my usual tormentor, my mother-in-law. The housemaid is back. As soon as I entered the house, she sneered. However, my resolve was entirely different this time. I dropped my sports bag filled with hospital things onto the floor, stood up straight, took a deep breath, and then I yelled with a voice that echoed in the living room, I am not a housemaid. My mother-in-law, who had never expected such a cry from me, shuddered and contorted her face. My husband also put down the newspaper he was reading and stared at me in shock. Old age and treachery will always beat youth and exuberance. That's laughable. You arbitrarily decided the labor would last 10 hours, and look at this hospital commotion. What's the merit of age? Just a waste of oxygen and a producer of carbon dioxide. I was surprised by my strong voice. The living room fell silent. I won't be silent anymore. I won't be submissive. To protect my child, I will protect myself as a mother. That's how I began my turnaround. The next day, my husband John went to work. We hadn't spoken since yesterday. I didn't know if he thought the housemaid treatment was wrong, or if he was just shocked by my sudden outburst, but he ate his toast quietly and left. After John left for work, I had an hour before my mother-in-law would come. During that time, I called a locksmith and had the front door lock changed. Now my mother-in-law couldn't enter with her old key. At 9 a.m., as expected, there was the sound of someone trying to open the front door with a lot of noise. The doorbell rang incessantly, followed by loud banging and my mother-in-law's voice yelling, "What's going on? Why won't you open the door? Stop this nonsense. Are you playing games?" Her voice continued. Without hesitation, I dialed 110 on my smartphone. It's an unlawful entry. Soon, a patrol car arrived in response to the silent alarm. My mother-in-law's shouting ceased, and it seemed like she was being questioned. When the police asked me what happened, I feigned ignorance. Before I knew it, they had taken my mother-in-law away. I returned to the living room, had some tea, and then breastfed my baby when he cried. The baby's skin was so soft and cute. I couldn't bear the thought of this little life being tainted by my mother-in-law. I had every right to get angry. Then, past 8 p.m., again, there was the sound of someone trying to open the front door. The doorbell rang incessantly. The ringing was followed by a call from my husband John on my smartphone. "What's going on? I couldn't stand your mother anymore." So I changed the locks and banned her from entering. I replied calmly. "Huh? Didn't I say I wanted a home where people gather?" He blustered. I retorted, "I prefer quiet home, a place where our family can relax." "I've accommodated your wish for a year, right? Now it's time for my wish. Above all, I don't want to raise our baby in a tense environment." "Wait, didn't my mom help us?" As he continued to argue, I firmly said, "It was nothing but a nuisance. Even if your mother thought she was helping, I'm the one who evaluates that. And I'll never forget how she exploited me under the guise of wisdom of age. Once my maternity leave is over, I intend to return to work. I don't mind if we don't see each other anymore. I'll even tell everyone at work that you made me work until my water broke." I ended the call definitively. Afterward, I heard the sound of a car engine. Realizing John had resigned himself to go to his parents' house, I continued to watch TV, breastfed my baby when he cried, and fell asleep holding my warm, cozy baby. As expected, the next day I received a call from my father-in-law. "I want to hear the reason for all this. Knowing your gentle nature, if you're this angry, it must mean my wife and son did something terrible, but I've only heard their side of the story." My father-in-law sounded flustered on the phone. I said, "I never want your wife, especially, to enter this house again, so I will visit you this weekend. Thinking about it, it's a 1 versus 2 battle between me, John, and his mother, but I have my baby to protect. I cannot afford to lose." I prepared for the weekend showdown by rehearsing potential conversations. So I went to my in-laws' house with my baby. "Oh, how cute," said my mother-in-law as she reached out to touch the baby. I quickly brushed her hand away. "Don't touch him, you," after sending me to the hospital in an ambulance. Surprised by my use of "you," my mother-in-law blinked and stammered, "Yeah. These are the very words you've always used with me. Don't get flustered just because you're on the receiving end now." I returned her tone with equal roughness. An ambulance. Hearing it for the first time, my father-in-law looked confused. See, she hadn't told him. "Your wife almost killed me. I begged for help during unbearable labor pains, but was ignored. She even said, 'Housemaid, isn't the meal ready yet?' In the end, my water broke right there, and I was taken away in an ambulance," I said directly to my father-in-law. "What?" He was wide-eyed with surprise. "This is the proof." I slammed the emergency transport certificate on the table. A certificate with the fire chief's seal is given to those transported by ambulance. I had saved it for this day. My counterattack was far from over. First of all, since the day we moved into our new home, your wife. I laid everything bare to my father-in-law. How she came over every morning for the so-called special morning, expecting breakfast. How she brought her laundry for me to wash. She had me make all the dinners and take them home in containers. All this, right up until my water broke. I had no idea. I leave early for work every morning. He looked utterly dejected. But I suspected I might be eating the meals you cooked. The taste changed suddenly. I knew it. But I believed her when she said she was trying new recipes. In a marriage, the worst thing is lies. He spoke in a strained voice. Though my father-in-law was unaware, he was still complicit as her husband. But your wife said, I was also bullied by my mother-in-law. So you ignored your wife being bullied by her mother-in-law, just like my husband does, right? I accused my father-in-law. What? He seemed shocked by my story, briefly reeling back. My mother was already in heaven when we got married. It was my turn to be surprised. What? Everything my mother-in-law said was a lie. So, you were deceived by lies, and I was victimized by them, right? I asked, seeking confirmation. My father-in-law looked down, his face filled with regret. Yes, it seems so. I decided to deliver the final ultimatum to my mother-in-law. Is it acceptable for you to barge into your son and daughter-in-law's home? Treat me as a housemaid under the guise of being a mother-in-law. I can't raise my child in such a heartless environment. Hey, are you listening? I'm talking to you, the liar and manipulator. I had forgotten to address her as mother-in-law, like she did to me. Calling her this woman or you was sufficient. Then my father-in-law said, my wife's lies are inexcusable. But my son is equally responsible for turning a blind eye. John and his mother had nothing to say in response. Both of you are nothing but harmful to my baby's growth. Protecting myself means protecting my baby. To safeguard my child, I'm ending this relationship now. I presented the green paper I had prepared, and then I returned to work. When I resumed my job, I had thought of exposing the terrible treatment by my ex-husband John and ex-mother-in-law. But by the time I came back, John had already left the company. Probably he was afraid of being the subject of gossip. Moreover, my mother-in-law was divorced by my father-in-law. His sense of justice was deeply stirred by the continuous lies his wife told him and the bullying she inflicted on me. My ex-mother-in-law was told by my father-in-law, never show your face to me again, and she moved far away. And so, peace returned to our lives. Occasionally, my father-in-law would visit and beam with joy at the sight of his grandson. He's adorable, so tiny. When he brandished a toy as a gift, my son laughed joyfully. I want to protect this small, precious smile. May he grow up healthy, strong, and resilient. I named my son Hierarchy, inspired by a tree known for its vitality and flexibility. A symbol of a strong and supple life.